This is the Jordan and Dad podcast. Today we're going to be judging the SEC, and we're going to start with the SEC East. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a wild year for college football. You thought last year was wild, and I'm not just hyping up this year because it's current. I'm hyping up this year in the SEC because the SEC East is top heavy. And I'm going to tell you why it's top heavy right now. First off, we're going to talk about Georgia. All right? Now listen, Georgia, again, yeah, you say it's more of the same. Well, that's because they are a great team. So obviously, and I say obviously meaning duh, right? Georgia is probably the best team. And the reason why I say probably is because if you look at the next two, you're going to find out that it's very competitive. So Vanderbilt, I mean, come on. It's one of those things where Vanderbilt is going to beat a team possibly. I don't really feel like Vanderbilt is that good of a team at all. They're right at the bottom there with Tennessee. Spoiler alert, Vandy and Tennessee are in the bottom half of the East Division. But, you know, come on, give me a break. They're going to smash Vanderbilt. Now, we can have a discussion at a later time about how teams like Georgia purposely schedule Murray State, and that's an automatic win. And then they play Arkansas State. So, look, 3-0 to start the season. Then they play Notre Dame. So, you could put a question mark next to Notre Dame. But I think Georgia's better than Notre Dame. Obviously, you saw it happen last year, but last year is no prediction of this year necessarily. Then they play Tennessee, win. South Carolina, win. Kentucky, tough game. Probably come out with the win. Florida, I've got Florida beating Georgia. And you'll see why here in a minute. It just makes sense. And I also have Georgia beating Missouri. Now, Missouri, again, could win that game. Auburn could win that game. But I think Georgia's going to win. Texas A&M, win, and Georgia Tech is obviously a win. Now going to the next, you got Missouri in second. Oh, one thing to note, by the way. They don't play, so if you go back to Georgia, Georgia does not play Alabama or LSU. I think it's important to note. Go to Missouri, they don't play Bama or LSU either. So, you know, I'm big on Missouri this year. I think for some reason that, you know, Missouri is gonna do very good. I really do. I think that Missouri has the ability to be second or third. And honestly, looking at Missouri's schedule, I've got them, second or third in the SEC. Last year, they were 4-4 in the conference. They were 8-4 overall. So, you know, will they be amazing? I mean, probably so, just because of their schedule. Look, they start out playing Wyoming, then they play West Virginia, then they play Southeast Missouri, and then they play South Carolina, and then they play Troy. So there's 5 wins right there, and then they play Ole Miss. Then they play Vandy. So really up until Kentucky, I don't see them having any trouble. And lost to Georgia. Tough game versus Florida. They might lose that one. And then they play Tennessee and Arkansas. And so, again, they don't play Bama or LSU. So tell me why in the world this doesn't make any sense. I mean, it's a no-brainer to me to at least be 9-3. Because you could say they might lose to Florida, they might lose to Kentucky. And then, I mean, that would be great for Tennessee going into a game versus Missouri after 3 straight losses. It's possible. So, anyway, next we have Florida. So, Florida plays Miami. It's going to be a tough game. Not too concerned about Miami, although I think Miami is on the rise. So, when you're looking at Florida, they also have an easier schedule. They play UT Martin, so that's a win. They play Kentucky. That one either or, but I think they pull out the win here. They play Tennessee. It's an automatic win. And then they go to Towson. That is not Missouri. I know their freaking symbols are similar, but Towson, that's a win. Auburn could be a tough game, but Florida's the better team. LSU, I think they're going to lose to LSU. You're going to smoke the Gamecocks. And I have Georgia's only loss coming against Florida. I have Georgia's only loss coming against Florida. Now, this is a home game for Florida. That is one of the reasons why I have the Gators winning, because Georgia has to go into the swamp. Now, had Florida gone at Georgia, I might say probably a loss. Then they're going to smoke Vanderbilt. They're going to play Missouri. They're going to go at Missouri. So I think that's going to be a loss for Florida. So again, a 10-2 team, and then they're going to beat the pants off of Florida State. So that is Florida. Coming up next, number 4, we've got Kentucky. So Kentucky did well last year. They made big news first half of the season, and then got throttled down. But Kentucky is one of those teams that's middle of the pack. It's been a while since they've been amazing. I don't really know that they've ever been on top of it, but it's nice to see somebody else in the SEC. It just makes the SEC a whole lot better. So Kentucky plays Toledo. It should be a win, although got to be careful. Toledo is no slouch freaking team. Then they play EMU. That should be a win. They go to they play at home versus Florida, but Florida's going to be pretty good this year. And then they're going to win against Mississippi State. It's not automatic. They're going to win against South Carolina, Arkansas. Go to Georgia, lose to Georgia, play Missouri at home, lost to Missouri, and then they're going to win out because they play stinking Tennessee, Vanderbilt, UT Martin, and then Louisville. So pretty much that's a wrap for Kentucky. Now we get into the 3 bottom of the barrel teams in the SEC East. This is where tears start shedding. This is where anger, like if you can't understand the time of like if you can't understand where your team's at the moment, minus a breakout season like Kentucky had last year, which is possible, I understand. But then you can be mad at me for saying this. But Gamecocks, man, look, you have some work to do. I know last year you were 4th in the conference, which means something for a bowl game, but doesn't mean anything for competition against your own freaking conference. You were 4th in the East. That's like not good. So North Carolina could be a win. Look, the Charleston Southern Buccaneers, if you don't win this game, you got problems. But you got a tough. I think the Gamecocks literally, they don't play LSU, but they have probably one of the toughest schedules in the SEC. So lost Kentucky, lost Georgia, lost Florida, win over Tennessee. Sorry, Vol fans. Look, I as much as I want the Vols to be great again, they're just not. They got a lot of rebuilding to do in every single area of the field. And then they have areas in coaching. They have not had a steady coach forever. And then Gamecocks can beat Vandy. But I've got them losing to App State and losing to A&M and obviously losing against Clemson. Let's move on to the Commodores. Now, the Commodores, again, just like Tennessee, they're going to battle for who's last. And I don't care. They're going to lose to Georgia. They're going to lose to Big Ten, Purdue. They're going to lose to LSU. Probably going to lose to NIU, the Huskies. They're from up there in DeKalb. They're good in their conference usually. I can see a win there. Ole Miss, probably going to be a good game. UNLV should be a win. But hell, you never know. It's Vanderbilt. Lost versus Missouri. Lost versus Gamecocks. That one also, I don't know. Could be a good battle. Obvious loss versus Florida. Obvious loss versus Kentucky. And then, East Tennessee State should be a win. And then Tennessee, that's going to be a great game for Tennessee and for Vanderbilt. So moving on to, drum roll please, bottom of the barrel, Tennessee. Look, I shouldn't even have to talk about these games because this is just the saddest, one of the saddest stories, like top 2 or 3 saddest stories in the SEC. So you have Tennessee. What can we say about Tennessee? New coach, did not do well last year. Did he do better than the year before? Yes, because they were winless before last year, and they won 2 conference games last year. So hats off to Tennessee for getting into the win column. Finally, after forever and forever and forever. So they start out with Georgia State. That better be a win. Probably lost to BYU. They play Chattanooga, and this should be a win. And then they're not going to win a single game. Unless Tennessee beats Mississippi State, UAB. So you can argue that the UAB Blazers game. But let me tell you, Tennessee fans, something about UAB. So UAB's last 5, right, of last year, they beat NIU, they beat Middle Tennessee in regular season, and then dropped them in the championship game. So, look, they're not. UAB is not a team to be messing around with. And then this is the game that makes me think, because UAB's got returning players, but then they played Southern Miss, and they beat Southern Miss. So when you're beating Southern Miss, you're something. When you're not in a like normally a great school. So that's why I have UAB winning that game. And then Vanderbilt, I mean, I could literally have put a W there. So I don't know. But at the end of the day, this is what we're looking at right here. We're looking at some interesting facts about the SEC East that you probably already know, but Georgia and Missouri are going to be both 11-1, but I think Georgia's going to beat Missouri, so they're probably going to be first. And then you got Georgia's always lucky. They don't play Bama or LSU this year, so Missouri doesn't play Bama. Florida doesn't play Bama, and Kentucky doesn't play Alabama. So, I mean, this is what we got. If you agree with it, which the only thing I can see that will change is an upset here or there, but it's not going to be anything drastic. Like, I don't see South Carolina at 10-2. I don't see South Carolina at 7-5. I don't see Georgia at 8-4. I mean, who are they going to lose to? Who's Florida going to lose to? Missouri. So Missouri is the only wild card. Like, that's the biggest wild card, because Missouri could be where South Carolina's at. I don't think that Missouri is a lock at 2, but I would say based on my gut feelings, it's pretty damn good. This is what we're looking at right here for SEC East. And with that, I say, Daddy-o, out.